Today is the 25th of April 2026, and today is the Singapore T100.
The T100 Triathlon World Tour. The sport's greatest competition. And it all begins here, Singapore.
So I have an aspirational goal to try and complete a triathlon in 2027, and the T100 is the one I've been eyeballing. This year we're here in a spectator capacity, and we're going to try and think about how we can manifest and visualize 3 months post-hip surgery into competing in the T100 in 1 year's time. And what a morning for it. The swim is about to start just over there, so we're going to rush around and get some footage of the race start. Just walking across the Helix Bridge now, and I mean, as far as start lines for a triathlon goes, this one is pretty scenic. Very cool to see the swimmers in the Marina Bay. Now I'm running over to T1 to see what transition is going to be like. So I talked about visualization earlier. I could just imagine being so happy after the swim is done and get ready to jump on the bike. Well, that was a cool experience. It was very inspiring to see all of the triathletes competing this morning. And I think the great thing about the T100 is that there are a variety of events on offer. The flagship event is the 100-kilometer race, and that's where it gets its name from, the T100. That is a 2-kilometer swim, an 80-kilometer bike ride, and an 18-kilometer run. Of course, there are separate races for the pros versus the amateurs, but you can also take part in a relay, there's duathlon, there's even an aquathon. These various races, they take place across the whole weekend, but I only had time on Saturday morning, which meant I got to take in the sprint, which is a 750-meter swim, followed by a 20-kilometer bike ride, and then closes off with a 5-kilometer run. And it was really enjoyable to watch the triathletes, get a sense of what it's like on race day. Although, that being said, I think the organisation for spectators and trying to find good vantage points of viewing left a little bit to be desired. For example, it wasn't particularly clear how to get really good views for the bike and the run. But one thing that didn't disappoint was their live coverage of the men's pro event on the Saturday afternoon. I was able to take in bits and pieces of that throughout the day, and Hayden Wild was really impressive. He totally dominated the race for the second year running. And I think he's going to be very hard to beat again this year.
To know whether this is in fact going to be the biggest winning margin we've ever seen, because we now are going to be about 6 minutes of waiting for Sam Dickinson.
But selfishly, and more importantly for me, I caught this little snippet towards the end of the race.
Website where you can find the nearest race to you.
Worth noting that we've already got our date in the diary for Singapore next year, so we will be back on the 10th and 11th of April.
The date for next year's Singapore T100 is already confirmed, and having that timeline clear in my mind gives me something to work towards. So long-term goals, they're exciting. They give you a sense of direction and purpose, but they can often feel a little bit out of reach. And so in order to make them a bit more tangible and a bit more achievable, I find it's often helpful to break those down into smaller stepping stone goals. So I'm going to start by breaking down the next year into months. And the first focus area for me is going to be swimming. And this suits me down to the ground because swimming is by far the weakest of the three triathlon disciplines for me. So what I'm going to be focusing on over the next few months is building up my swimming fitness in the pool, trying to get up to workouts of 1,500 meters and beyond. And then once I feel I've been able to do that consistently, I'll look to reintroduce open water swimming. And if I'm being conservative, in terms of timeline, I'd like to be able to consistently get back into doing those distances and open water swimming by September. So that gives me about 6 months, and I feel like that's achievable. I'm also bearing in mind that I'm going to be away for a month in July, so I'll probably have to pick my swimming fitness back up upon return. Focus area number 2 will be to ramp up my cycling. So where I'd love to get to is by November, December time, that I'm able to consistently do 50-kilometer rides on my outdoor road bike. But there's going to be a bit of a path to get there. So right now, I'm just doing 20-minute cycles on my trainer. I want to ramp that up to about 45 minutes before I start to introduce the road bike again. And then ideally, I'd like to be able to combine my cycling and swimming goals by riding down to Sentosa, which is about a 30-minute ride from here, doing an open water swim, and then cycling back. And last but not least, returning to running. This is probably the one that feels the most intangible right now, just because I haven't even started doing agility work or plyometrics, let alone started to return to jog. But once my physio gives me the green light for some walk-run intervals, I think it'll feel a bit more achievable. The timeline for this one is a little bit more fuzzy than the cycling and the swimming, but the goal that I have in mind is that every November or December there is the standard chartered Singapore Marathon, but they also have half marathons, 10Ks and 5Ks. And I would like to complete either the 5 or the 10K race come December, ideally the 10K, but 5K would still be great. And then you can see through these 3 goals, I want to build that foundation and base so that as I come to the end of the year, I'm feeling in a good spot to tackle 2027, because that would leave me with just over a 3-month training plan to get ready for the T100. So having this timeline in place is exciting, and it's great to have a sense of structure, but I'm also trying to be conservative. Having gone through all of these injuries and surgeries, I suspect there'll be some setbacks that I'll have to deal with along the way. But hopefully this will allow me to finish the year in good shape and have a good base level of fitness that will allow me to attack the training plan in 2027. And if you'd like to see how I've been kicking off my swimming and cycling training post-surgery so far, then check out the videos coming up in the next screen. Thanks for watching.